Showtime.
It's about that time.
Let's go.
You're right where you need to be. This is GCOM Radio.
Hardest radio station on the planet. Yeah.
Powered by Lyfeblood.com.
We certified.
And hosted by Nova Phoenix.
Give them that flavor.
Okay, man, let's go with this show, man. What is going on, everyone? Thank you for turning on this show. Once again, I'm your host, Nova Phoenix, on GCOM Radio, on iHeartRadio. And we're just going to be right here with you guys just to talk sincerely about some things that's been going on in the news. For this show, it's going to be a direct one-on-one with the listeners, with a variety of listeners that do tune into the show. And it's not going to be the same format, and it's something that I felt that it was necessary to talk about as far as some news that's been going on that's really kind of gaining steam. And I want to do what I can as the host of GCOM Radio, the founder of Lyfeblood.com, and how we involve all people and on the platform. Excuse me. And these are the things that I do want to talk about that we can discuss on the platform and on the show, because it's all about challenging our ideas of how we think of each other when it comes to any conflict or issues that are happening. So let's just get started right away into it now, because there's a lot to cover, and I don't know if I could do this in a half hour. I'm thinking about doing a half hour, but there's just so much information, and I think it's just necessary to cover. And I believe in impartiality and objectiveness whenever it comes to issues that are dealing with the African American community, which I'm a part of, and any other communities when it comes to issues or whatever that's happening between us and them. So anyway, last show in News You Need to Know, I covered some things with anti-Asian hate. And if you listen to the show, you know I thought that was important to cover when it comes to people that are going through injustice. And it's just not about me being a black man in America that deals with racism and bigotry and aggression, dealing with race, but also to highlight what's happening to other people, because it's just not all about black people that's going through hardship. In this case, there's a rise in anti-Asian hate, which I covered. So just to get into it, I found it interesting that after I covered it, I started to get more information online. And you have to be careful what you listen to online, because things could be kind of fabricated and pieced together, and sometimes you don't get things in its proper context. And so I seen this video while I was driving, and I saw it where they were talking about an ABC, or I think it was CBS, which one of those networks. It was I think it was late night or whatever, and it was an Asian newscaster talking to an Asian family, and it was all about black people committing hate crimes against Asian Americans. And I saw this piece and I was like, wow, wait, that's crazy. And I'm like, I just did something on anti-Asian hate on the show, and it's interesting that I'm seeing this video now, and I still haven't seen the full video. So I'm really not going to go hard on it, because again, when you see those cuts, sometimes the person that created that video is trying to put something or contextualize it in a way that fits their agenda. And you can make a story sound a particular way based on how you cut it. So but I think I got enough information to know that the way it was cut, it was trying to insinuate or to say that black people were the perpetrators of anti-Asian hate that's happening. And I was like, that's not something that I was aware of when I covered it on my show, and that's episode 102. And I was totally unaware of it. I'm like, wait, if this was the case, I would have looked deeper. But I saw this video and I saw it a couple of times, and this couple was talking about the conversation has to be had in the African American community when it comes to aggression that's happening to Asian people. And I'm like, wait a second, really? Is this thing happening? Last time I checked, I was black. I've got black friends, and they had black friends, and I'm like, I don't know about this. So I was very, very I was taken back by it. I'm like, man, I gotta look into this. So I did like a quick Google search. And I'm like, let me see if there's any video or anything like that or any cases. The piece of information that I did get was from an article stating that from a organization here. Let me see if I have this here. Did I close it? It said that the Stop AAPI Hate, an organization that deals with anti-Asian incidents, that records anti-Asian incidents from March 19th to December 31st, 2020, saw a considerable rise. And I'm like, okay, it's something to report. And of course, this is tied in with Trump talking about the Chinese virus, of course, the COVID. And because of this, a lot of this hate is brewing up in cities across America against Asian people. And I see that happening. I've seen the news clips. I see the things on YouTube or on social media. I'm like, it's good to cover. But then, as I said, it's interesting that I'm seeing this twist is happening in the news talking about that black folks are the main perpetrators of this. And I'm like, man, I don't know about this. So I saw a little bit of it and I'm like, I'll get to it. And I'm thinking about, okay, how should I deal with this? Should I do a program on it? But as I was thinking about this and I'm going through my day, and what kind of made the decision for me to talk about this sensitive issue, is the fact that in two separate occasions after I saw this video, I bumped into two Asian two Asian men, and both of them were looking at me, could not hold eye contact with me, and kind of like spoke with me like with their eyes darting around. So obviously the information of the news is spreading quickly in the Asian community that black people seem to be this enemy of anti-Asian hate. So not just once, but twice on two separate occasions. I was like, nah, I got to talk about this, man. I got to try to see about getting in front of this. And I've heard about some other indie news folks that were talking about it, and they have their take on it. And their take is like totally throwing up balls now and not dealing with the Asian community based on this propaganda that's being spread. And I think that's the wrong attitude to take. It's not something that we should do. Because all you're going to do is invite strife and conflict and uneasiness, and all it's going to do is divide or create more of a rift. Not to say that our two communities, the Asian community and the African American community, haven't had some issues before. Pockets, isolated cases, unfortunately, where for brothers have died and sisters have gotten accosted in some of these nail shops, and we've kind of stepped to them, not just in New York but other places, because you can't have an Asian owned store, a nail shop in the black community, and some of these black sisters are being treated horribly. I mean, they've been arm wrestled to the ground and tossed out and all this, treated like damn near second-class citizens. Okay, and it not be dealt with from the community. So there have been some things that have been happening over time that we're just not dealing with. Unfortunately, we're not dealing with it. Now, the community is going to react how it's going to react, because if you're going to spend money in a nail shop and you're not being treated fairly, then it should be dealt with the way it should be dealt with. And I totally back that all the way, because people won't spend your money. You got to treat people with respect. If something is not happening, you have to say, okay, what's going on, and be objective about it and deal with it accordingly. Now, if the person is being an a-hole and they're doing whatever, of course, you as a business owner have to do what's right to protect your business and your patrons, and also the people that work in your store. But if it's anything beyond that and it's disrespect to those customers, then come on. You're working in the black community. You're making money off of black dollars. You have to have some sort of some smarts about this on how you're dealing and what is your behavior towards your black patrons. So anyway, in the midst of all this, seeing this propaganda, I'm like, man, I smell a rat. I smell a rat, and that rat is a white supremacy. I see it. I see the handlers behind handling the white papers to this Asian newscaster. The whole premise of this program to talk about placing black people in direct target in the crosshairs of anti-Asian hate. I'm like, hold on. Hold on a second. If I had the clip, I will play it. Let me see if I can play it here. Okay, so that's the clip, and I'm like, what? So I was very concerned. And we have to be aware, as the Asian American community and the African American community, that we do live within our communities trying to survive, trying to live, trying to do the best for our families and our communities. That's opening businesses, that's creating some kind of an economic base. When it comes to our schooling, when it comes to daycare, healthcare, all of these things play a part, okay? Well, what the problem is, we also have to understand we do live in a land of white supremacy. And white supremacy will do anything that it can once it is threatened to drive any wedges between POC communities and African American communities. Okay? That is the direct point. And this is what we're dealing with now, especially in these times of what we're doing it with even pre-Trump, current Trump as we dealt with them in those 4 years, and post-Trump. Okay? They're going to pull out all the stops and use all the tools to try to create conflict and stir up fire between our communities. And one of it is through propaganda. And when you have propaganda like this, it's only going to incite more violence and more suspicion and more bitterness amongst our communities. Now, black people are not unaware of these tactics. We know these tactics from back in the day. Historically, black people in this country have always gone through this. And also Asian American communities. Now, not as much so, because a lot of people, the Asian American communities, they're immigrants, they're coming into this country. They're totally unaware of how this country operates in terms of race and racism. They get a taste of it when they're doing their business, when they have their fruit stands, their taxi drivers or whatever. And they're like, oh, what? Yes, no doubt, this is it. But there's also, unfortunately, a lot of anti-black racism that comes. Now, that comes with certain immigrant communities coming into just trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents. There's also a lot of the anti-black racism that comes into play. Now, racism just didn't start in America. This started as there was the traveling of, I'm gonna have to say, Europeans and other countries. Let's keep it real, 100. When Europeans went into Africa, when Europeans went into Asia, into Japan, dealing with Japan, China, forwarding their message of what it was as far as the white mythology of white supremacy. It's not something that black people are only affected by. It's affected by every POC around the planet, and you know it by the countries that you go in. Let's say India, for instance. They have a big problem with lightning cream. That light is better, white is better. The darker skinned Indians are the lower caste people. How European people are treated differently from other Indians. This is something that's a problem, just not right here in America, but in other countries as well. So sometimes a lot of this anti-black hate comes with them as they come over to I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying all immigrants that come to this country is anti-black, but you can tell from the energy that you get, wherever you're working, wherever you are, you can feel that energy in the exchange of words and how they treat you in comparison to other customers. When I'm talking about the black customers in comparison to others, we know of this, we're aware of it, and we speak about it amongst each other in our communities. So now when you have this come into play in the sophisticated system of mass media, you can see how these tools are used to drive wedges amongst POCs and black folk. And it was, I forgot this woman's name. I don't remember her name. When it comes down, I don't know her angle, but it doesn't really matter if she's anti-black or not. The fact is, she's reading from the script and she's delivering the message, which is creating this rift, which is creating this fire conflict amongst our communities, which is just starting with little cinders. Okay, with the looks and I'm sure, because I see it, I feel the behavior. And not just this newscaster, but also I found this article from a New York Post from this gentleman. He's a East Indian, Rav Aurora, which I found interesting. He talked about in his article, and this was, let me see if I can bring up this article here. His title was "Police Brutality Against Black People Happens Way Less Than the Public Thinks." And this was posted February 27th, 2021 by this gentleman, Rav Aurora, talking about how police brutality happens way less than what people thinks. And he goes on to show this silly graph that displays people's opinions or perceptions on how black people are treated based on their ideological affiliations, whether they're liberal, moderate, conservative. So they're saying how black people are treated is higher amongst liberals, but lower in the conservative pockets of the country. Or let's say in whatever data that was tabulated, and this data was tabulated by some, I don't know, hanky Skeptic Research Center. And I'm like, what is this data that he's drawing from? Because all he's doing is showing a graph of people's opinions. He's playing this slick game to try to make it be all important, that he's getting data from a reputable source, and they say, hey, people, see, black people are not treated as badly as we think based on this graph. So he's running a hoodwink on people to make it seem that he has legitimate sources. And it's a lie. It's propaganda. This man has been propped up to sell a message, to sully the image, character assassinate a whole community. A whole community. Now, I would love to challenge this man, and I'm definitely going to tweet him later. And I'm like, where are you getting this data from? Really, how are you making sense of all this information? Because I know the data that I get, that I brought up here. All right. There was another news article, and it's not so much as a news article. This news article was from ABC News, and they have a graph, similar graph, but it was done by it was called the NYC Open Data U.S. Census Bureau. And what is the NYC Open Data? Now, I'm just going to read this so you could get this. This is not anything to do with opinion or viewpoints or however this information was tabulated when he posted this chart in his article in the New York Post. This particular article that shows this graph came from Open Data, NYC Open Data. They said their mission: Open Data is an opportunity to engage New Yorkers in the information that is produced and used by city government. We believe that every New Yorker can benefit from Open Data, and Open Data can benefit from every New Yorker. And say, who are they? The Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, MODA, and the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, DOITT, partnered to form the Open Data Team. All right, these three different agencies. As a hub of analytics in the city, MODA advocates for the use of open data in citywide data analytics and in the community. DOITT manages the technical operations with city agencies and our vendor partner Socrata, ensuring that technological capabilities are always evolving to better meet user needs. Agencies are the data owners and have open data coordinators who serve as the primary point of contact with the open data team. Okay, so they tabulate data that they are gathering from whatever sources to get the information to corroborate the story that they are building on or centering around. So this particular piece of information on this ABC News article saying that blacks account for nearly half of all NYC arrests 6 years after end of stop and frisk. This is NYPD data. All right, not opinions. on ideological affiliations, whether you're conservative, right, or liberal, left-leaning, and thinking, what's the perception of black people? No. Arrests from 2006 to 2019, total was a little over 5 million. They say over those 5 million arrests from 2006 to 2019, 48% was black people, 34% was Hispanic, 12% was white, and 4% was Asian. Wow, perception is something else. Arrests since the end of stop and frisk program in January 2014. After the stop and frisk program was considered unconstitutional in NYC court, we have amount of arrests totaling 1.7 million people, close to 1.8. Guess what the percentage is of people arrested under that percentage? Under that number, excuse me. Black is 48%, Hispanic is 34%, white is 12%, and Asian is 5%. All of this data was tabulated to show the arrests by race. Interesting. Let's go on to say arrests in 2019. 2019, recent. What does that say? Arrests in 2019, black was 48%, Hispanic was 34%, white was 11%, and went down for white people, and Asian uptick of 1%, leading to 6% in total. This is arrests in 2019. Rav Aurora. Okay, so as far as the census, the New York City census data, as far as population of 8.3 million people in New York, guess how many people by race under that number? How it's broken down by demographic? Is white 43%, Hispanic 29%, blacks 24%, and Asian 14%. Wow. So let's not stop there. There's some other data that I found. Let me see if I can get to that. Right? You can go to this, folks. The site is NCB, and I'll post it on my IG. The site is ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/PMC/articles/P as in Paul MC 2561263. This is by PMC, the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. What does this have to do with what I'm talking about? There was an article that was posted and published. It's called The Race Ethnicity Disparity in Misdemeanor Marijuana Arrests in New York City, done by Andrew Golub, Golub, Bruce D. Johnson, and Eloise Dunlap. What did I get from this data? From 1980 to 2003, the New York City Police Department expanded its use of arrest and detention for minor offenses under its Quality of Life (QOL) policing initiative. Arrest data indicate that during the 1990s, the primary focus of QOL policing became smoking marijuana in public view. By 2000, MPV has become the most common misdemeanor arrest. During the 1990s, marijuana supplanted crack as the drug of choice among youth, especially in the inner city. So what are we dealing with in the inner city? Black and Latino youth. Now, New York City, I'm going to quote another line here. New York State's Attorney General reported that the stop and frisk program, in which civilians were temporarily detained, questioned, and sometimes searched, disproportionately affected NYC's Black and Hispanics. Whereas blacks comprised 26% of NYC's population, they accounted for 51% of all stops. Hispanics comprised of 24% of the population, but accounted for 33% of all stops. In strong contrast, whites comprised 43% of the population, yet accounted for only 13% of all stops. Now, was done by the New York State Attorney General, Eliot Spitzer, in review of the stop and frisk program. This is data that anybody can get. Not some foolish graph that you thrown together on what people's belief is by someone walking into an elevator and a white woman holding her purse a little bit closer because he's getting a little bit too close, a dark man, and he's got a freaking FedEx suit on. Now, out of this stop and frisk was Operation Impact, which I was a part of a group of people in a grassroots organization, Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, shout out to them, where I wanted to do my part in trying to deal with police brutality of its time. And one of those operations that were put together dealing with Black and Latino youth was Operation Impact. It started in 2003, spearheaded by Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. Now, Operation Impact focused on 20 high crime areas throughout the borough dealing with low-level crimes. And they did this through stop and frisk and later on to arrests. I was a part of some cop watch programs where I drove in the car and held cameras, and I looked into the eyes of death itself, where I did not know what was going to happen to me. And all I was armed with was a camera. When in that very moment, you do not know where your life is going to go. I don't know what was going to happen, but I knew in that moment that I wanted to do something to help people that were being terrorized by rogue police officers, by a system that is systemically racist. That is what I had to deal with. I dealt with that. You understand me? I dealt with that when people were arrested right before my eyes, and I went down to that police precinct and I was right there, my brother. So don't tell me about no graph that you're talking about people's opinions. I was right there in flesh and blood dealing with this nonsense. Okay? And what came out of Operation Impact? Another one. I was right there in flesh and blood with Timothy Stansbury Jr. Everybody in New York knows this case. He was shot and killed in Louis Armstrong Projects by Officer Terrence Neri. Timothy Stansbury was crossing over the top of this roof because that's how he did it, jumping from one house to the next, building to the next, and he was coming down and he was met by Officer Terrence Neri, scared as fuck, and he let off his weapon, killing Timothy Stansbury right next to his friend. And the community came out, and public figures like Councilmember Charles Barron. Unfortunately, Officer Terrence Neri, not much happened to him. He ain't go to jail. But their family eventually won $2 million. And in remembrance, they got a street sign placed in Timothy Stansbury Street, if I'm correct, on Lexington Avenue. I was there, bro. Don't give me that nonsense again about graphs and what people think or opinion. Don't give me nothing of that. So here, folks, these people are properly vetted. This doesn't happen out of the thin blue air. They know these people. They're properly vetted to know how they think, what angle they're going to come from when they're writing out their paper or typing out whatever article that they want for that newspaper. These people know where they're coming from. The people that run the New York Post, they know the deal. Which leads into Austin Chang. Everybody knows who Austin Chang is. This dude is a black dude that's running for governor in Michigan. Right, a Nigerian dude from Michigan. Now, he's saying his talking point is if he becomes governor of Michigan, he's going to strike down Black History Month. Every black person and their grandmother know damn well this dude is a sellout, chattering coon. And he was handpicked by white supremacy to be the soulless, foot-shuffling Negro, to be the mouthpiece for them. And that's what's essentially what white supremacy want black people to be, immigrants. Now, I'm not painting all black immigrants like this, of course not. But there are those immigrants, black immigrants that come here with that coon mentality, thinking they can cozy up to white supremacy. And they like that. Racists like that. Because here's the thing, brothers and sisters from the continent coming over here, why they like you. Why do they like you so much? Because you're a black person that looks like a black American, but you don't have any historical references in this country. They want black people without the mind. They want black people without the memory. That's why they like African immigrants. And especially those like this dude, Mr. Chang, that they can shuffle along like a puppet with the strings from his back and his arms and his elbows. And they shuffle along with glee. Understand what I'm saying? Right next to him, cheesing and smiling. That's the thing. And I kind of explained that in an analogy I gave. What was it? With the game. Well, no, excuse me, it was business. You know, when you're doing your business and you make sure you're tight and you do all your homework and you're crossing your T's and you're dotting your I's and whatever that you need. Say music, for instance. Let's use it as an example. So your game is tight. You know your publishing, you know how much your royalty is going to be, you know how you're going to move your business, how you're going to market it, who your business manager is, who your road manager is, how you going to sell your product, your t-shirts, how you going to get this bread. Get the proper percentage points, right? So you tight and you go in front of this businessman that works at this record label. So you think he gonna try to get over on you, but you hit to it though. You hit. He's like, nah, Mr. Da-da-da. Here's my contract. This is what we gonna do. So you think he's gonna respect you as a businessman to say, all right, I can't get it over him. All right, let me cut you a new contract. You think that's what's gonna happen, excuse me. But in actuality, what happens is he cuts you off. He's like, nah, I ain't doing no deal. And you surprised. You like, what? I thought you was going to at least respect my G game because my business was tight. Nah, he don't give you that. He says, nah, I'll move on. I ain't signing that. I'm presenting no contract. You know why? Because he can't get over on you. It's not about respect. It's about what he can get from you, what he can exploit you with, how much more he can get from you. And if he can't get it from you, he'll get it from somebody else that don't know the game. And you walking away outside that office, shamed, disappointed. He ain't take you. But that's all good, bruh. Because you don't need to be in that deal anyway. Now, how is this reference back to Mr. Chang? As far as black Americans in this country that's been here for centuries, is hip to the game. They own their business. So they're not gonna allow someone to pull the wool over their eyes, because black people have been treated with such disrespect, and with the racism and the bigotry and the violent aggressions and all this. We have become hip to the game. Metal sharpens metal. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But we like, yo, we know what it is, and this is how we move it. So them racists said, damn, I can't put one over on these people anymore. What can I do? The sophistication of white supremacy. So they go to somebody across the water. Oh, this is perfect. He looks black. He has curly hair, kinky hair. He's dark enough. Okay, he's got the accent. He's got the black scent because he's been here long enough. Let me see if his mind's right. Yes. He doesn't have any historical references to this country. He doesn't have any memory of the trick bags that they've been given to native black Americans here that have been here for the longest. And that's how they use you, my brothers and sisters, from the continent or from the UK, wherever. And then there are those that don't care, man, and they just want to come in and get the bag. They're like, yo, whatever. They know the deal. They here for the bag. And they're willing to do anything for it. And that's the other coolness that's going down. So how this all tie in Rav Aurora and this Asian lady from the Nightly News and Austin Chang, if you baggage all of that, it's all tools of white supremacy. They can't do it themselves, so they'll have other people do it for them. That's the sophistication. That's the strategies they use. And black people are constantly attacked. And now, a lot of our sisters are Asian brothers and sisters. A lot of the East Indians is down as woke. A lot of our brothers and sisters from the continent is woke. They know the deal. They know what's up. And they riding. But there are a lot of them that are not. And that's the battle the black Americans have to go through in this country. That's the uphill battle. And that's another thing that we're going to have to figure out how to get around. And we're doing it. Because we're calling it out. Because if it wasn't for independent news from the black community, we would never know. Not just the black community, but also other communities. You don't think white folk know what Cheng is doing? White folk, woke white folk know what it is. They see it. They like, God damn. Can you imagine an Irishman coming in, wants to run for governor in whatever state, say New York City, and says, I'm going to take away St. Patrick's Day because it's all about all of us being Americans, because you shouldn't just concentrate on one people. You know what the Irish would be saying right now? You understand what I'm saying? And as far as I could remember, I don't remember any African Americans going to the country or any country in Africa, go to run for office and tell the very countrymen to say that they're going to take away a valued event, a holiday, or tradition. You got to be out of your mind. But yet here we are. Why? Because it's indoctrination, self-hate, and wanting to get the bag. Understand what I'm saying? Now, this is the other side. We are all a part of black American culture, for those that are born here. Listen, there's an individual that is out there, and I don't want to talk about it. And I've spoken to other people that I know in my circle, and we try to control what we say out in public because of the enemies that are out there that would try to twist our words and make it seem or try to pit us against each other. But this brother, I understand where he's coming from. But this is black American culture that has went through the generations since the antebellum South from the very beginning. Or let's say from 1615 up to now in the present day. And it's developed and flourished and blossomed into the black American culture that we understand it and what the world recognizes it as. It's African American culture. It's the food, the talk, the clothes, the music, blues, jazz, house, rock, hip hop, R&B. We live it. You know what I mean? You can't take that. We lived it. So not just as far as the native black Americans here, but also the African immigrants and also the Caribbean immigrants that came here in the 70s. We are a part of that. Especially in hip hop. You can't tell me otherwise. You know why I say that? You know why I say that? When it comes to hip hop, us being a part of hip hop culture, and not being able to take that away. Yo, DJ Kool Herc is Jamaican. Foxy Brown is Trinidadian. Wyclef Jean is Haitian. LL Cool J is Bajan, which I ain't know. Nicki Minaj is Trini. ASAP Ferg is Trini. Dougie Fresh is Bajan. Grandmaster Flash is Bajan. Heavy D is Jamaican. Tyga is Jamaican. Notorious B.I.G., my man from Brooklyn, is Jamaican. Busta Rhymes is Jamaican. Andre from Crazy Drazy from Das Effects is Jamaican. Trina from Florida, she's Aruban and from the Bahamas. I forget the other way of saying it. Rihanna she's Bajan. DJ Pete Rock is Jamaican. What you telling me, bro? The Caribbean culture is in this. Born here. Because our parents came here in the 70s. We are immersed in black culture. What you talking about? Without these people, there would be no hip hop. So what you talking about? We not a part of this. We not a part of black American culture. What you talking about?
Caribbean people are literally hip hop, my dude. One of my good friends from back in the day, he's Guyanese. I'm Panamanian. We were born here. Part of hip hop culture. Started with the Fat Boys, as I said last show. Going into to KRS-One and grew up into that. And us telling each other the stories and coming up and learning about Black American history from 1619. You can't tell me otherwise. I'm here, man, and you're never gonna take that from me. And then here's another story. Panamanian as a Panamanian. We all tribalize. We all do it. As a part of West Indian Day Parade. I was there every year for years. I haven't been recently, of course, but I was there for years in my 20s, my dude. Years. Been there. Family, with friends. Every island that came representing the West Indian Day Parade. But you know what is a funny little story? I was going and visiting my man on Eastern Parkway, going up the steps, and it was a group of 3 older ladies, sisters. And she was like, where are you from, young man? I was in my mid-20s. Where are you from, young man? I said, I'm from Panama. I had my Panama flag hanging out the backside of my, you know what I mean? And she was like, oh, you're not West Indian. I was like, what? She said, you're Central American. See how we tribalize? See how we try to separate each other? Understand what I'm saying? Where's my phone? So I can get this right. Where's my phone? Hold on, y'all. My bad. I want to get this right. Because sometimes I got to go into my lineage. You heard? My phone's going off. Damn. See, my grandfather, I wanted to get the country right. My grandfather's father came from the line of Jamaicans. Jamaican, yes. You Panamanian, yes. Jamaicans that came and they wanted to work and they went over to build the Panama Canal. Jamaicans, they're hardworking people that went over to Nicaragua. Yes, I got family in Nicaragua. And I got family from St. Lucia. And my dad's grandfather is Trini. These are black people, and I'm going to set this map out because I always want to do this, and I will set this map out as far as the family lineage. All of these people from the islands, crisscrossing the islands, trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. Working on that Panama Canal, picking up Spanish, my dude. Okay? So you mean to tell me that people are traveling back and forth through other islands, but they not traveling back and forth during the transatlantic slave trade from in the antebellum South back to the Caribbean? What are you talking about, man? Black people were treated like chattel slaves, like cattle. So you mean transatlantic slave trade started in the Caribbean and ended up in the antebellum South in one direction? People were treated like goods. How you think goods is traded back and forth, one country, one continent to the next? We got black people in Mexico. We got black people in Puerto Rico. We got black people in Brazil. What are you talking about, my guy? Black people was traveling. Black people were forced relocations. Not traveling at the time. Back and forth. So that didn't happen. So you know, I got my lineage going back and forth trying to find work. Now this is by choice. Ended up in the Panama Canal. Most of my family over there in Panama. What you telling me, man? What is hip hop without the Caribbean folk? Without us, this wouldn't be here. So we are part of this gumbo, this mix of different cultures and people and languages. And yes, we are Black Americans and we live that, but we also recognize that we have our lineage that goes back to the Caribbean islands. What are you talking about, my guy? We are hip hop. We are Black American. We know what it is. And what we need from that is governance structure. Building on who we are to each other. What is our value? How do we shape and explain this? How do we create this new governance structure amongst all of us as Black Americans, Caribbeans, Africans from the continent, Africans in the UK? What does that mean, my guy? That's what we have to build. And as it blossoms and flourishes, how does that expression going to be presented to the outside world, the social structure? Yes, I know. Shout out to Dr. Carr. You understand what I'm saying? So it's divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer between POCs and Black folk. It's even divide and conquer amongst the genders in the Black community. That's why I wasn't sure sometimes about Tarana Burke, and I have to shout that out. And in no disrespect to her, she's the founder of the Me Too movement, and I support the Me Too. I support the Me Too movement as far as how women have been mistreated, Black women are mistreated, and sexual violence, and aggression, and rape. That is personal to me. And actually, if you look online and you Google it, actually, I even shared a video dealing with sexual violence. That surprisingly to me was shared a couple of times on my YouTube channel. Because I have a daughter and I have women in my family and they should be protected. I don't care where you're from. Any woman should be protected. But my problem is when it comes to Tarana Burke, I was kind of set back when she said, well, it's not my job to check white men. I'm like, what? Isn't it sexual aggression, sexual violence, violence against any woman, regardless of what color it is, white, Black, Asian, whatever? So I was like, And she really recently was on a show talking about sexual violence and it should be talked about. Conversations have to be had. I'm like, what? You ain't say nothing about FK Twigs when she was assaulted by Shia LaBeouf. That was a big story. That was just recently. I didn't hear a word. I checked her Twitter. She didn't say anything about that. That was a woman that was violated in the way that she described it with Shia LaBeouf. How about Tarana talking about Chad Wheeler of the Seattle Seahawks? He was choking out his Black girlfriend and beat her half to death. That was recent. Tarana didn't talk about that. So when these little things happen, these actions take place, I start questioning it. Because a part of the Me Too movement is highlighting everything. And the sophistication, the slick tactics of white supremacy is using the Trojan horse on social issues. The Trojan horse, everybody knows and understands that. Presenting gifts, but really have a sly, slick, devious motive lying deep within. So you have to be careful not to be used as pawns. Now, am I saying let anybody go that hasn't committed some sort of sexual violence? Of course not. I'm not saying that. My man should be under the jail. He should be dealt with if you're going to beat up a woman half to death. Especially what happens to them jokers over there in Harlem that beat up that woman after she was coming out the liquor store. They should be under the jail. Okay? But we have to be very careful. Very careful that if we're going to deal with the Me Too movement, we got to do it across the board. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to be Black to identify and call out sexual violence, even if it's a white man. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I got my eye on Tarana Burke. But we'll see. Anyway, continuing. Now, I say that when it comes to POCs in this country, that the sacrifice that Black Americans have made should be celebrated and honored by all people who come to this country. The blood, the sweat, the tears, the cries, the depression, the horror, everything that Black Americans have experienced, has sacrificed, and we have given people the right to vote and to be respected regardless of their color, that is owed to us. If you are a POC coming into this country right now, where you could get your house, where you could start a business, regardless of where you come from. And I had to talk to someone about that. I had someone talk a little slick, and I had to check it. There was a guy that wasn't even coming from here. I'm sorry, I have to say, this guy from Dominican Republic. And he said something slick. I was like, yo, what are you talking about? Oh, you talking slick about Martin? And I had to check him. Without Martin, you wouldn't be here, player. And there was also another brother that we're good. He's a good guy. He was Filipino. Great guy. And I pointed to him too. Without Martin, he wouldn't be here. So Black Americans should get a certain level of respect, all the respect due. And say, yo, without Black Americans, I wouldn't have this opportunity now from wherever I come from. But then what gets my goat is that people come to this country unaware of what the contributions that Black Americans have given, and they come here and then they try to shit on Black Americans. That is the insult. And that's something that Black people, we would have to deal with when we going out there and out in the world. So look at everything Black people has gone through. We got to deal with racism in all aspects of it. We got to deal with the racist, the white supremacist pawns, the guys like Cheng, the guy like, what's his name? From that Rob Aurora. We got to deal with that. We have to deal with all types of strategies and plans and ulterior motives. That doesn't exclude all of our allies. I'm not leaving our allies out because I see y'all. I shout at y'all. Thank you guys for being there for Black folk. Thank you guys so much. And I was in plenty of those multiracial marches for racial justice, where I saw a sea of people from different racial backgrounds, when they were Asian or white or Indian or whatever, saying we need to have a better world. We see the injustice and we're calling it out, where the streets of New York was packed. And I was right there in the sea of folks raising our fists, and we were shouting to the top of the buildings. They couldn't avoid it. I see our allies, don't get it twisted. And I thank you. Because I'm not going to be here and sit here and talk about we ain't got no allies and people have shedded their blood for me. Shout out to all my allies. I'm saying it right now. Shout y'all out. Thank you. And on the last note, there are things that have to be corrected between the Asian community and the African American community. Now, I'm going to be honest. African American people, regardless of what city you're in, there's a thing that we dealt with as far in the beauty supply industry. It's a $25 billion industry. Essence Magazine says black hair care is $2.5 billion. And in the spirit of self-determination, it's important that Black women lead in the manufacturing and the retail portion of this business. Because Black folk for so long has been left out and locked out. And we have to do what we have to do to create some sort of economics within our community. And the Asian folks have been holding it down for a long time. And some of that business has suffered when Black women have natural hair, right? Since this trend of natural hair has been coming up, less weaves have been used. So the sales is taking a dip. Now, I'm going to say it to my sisters. Y'all going to have to let them weaves go. You know that's not your hair. You know damn well that ain't your hair. You're going to have to cut that out. Stop wearing that Indian hair. You got freaking Indian women cutting off their hair just and sending it off to you for hair that is not even yours. You don't have straight hair. Let your hair grow naturally out your head and raise your even if you gotta shave off all your hair, you raise your head high as the queen that you are of 10,000 years of African royalness in your blood. You stand tall and you rock your natural joint. So I'm talking to my brothers and sisters in the Asian community. This is what we have to do. Because I've gone in the Asian communities in Brooklyn and Queens, and you have self-determination. From corner to corner is Asian stores, corner to corner. I don't see one black business there. I drive through these neighborhoods and I walk through them. And I respect it. I don't hate on it. I respect it. But that's what we have to do as a community. As a black community, I'm talking to y'all Asian community as a person from the black community. This is what we have to do. So that $2.5 billion that's being spent has to come back in our communities by us. But what we can't do is fight. Because if we fight, they win. And I'm hoping that with using some humanity, some objectiveness, that you're just willing to say, yeah, all right, here you go. And I'm not saying where you can't feed your families, but you're going to do what you must do. You're going to do what you must do. And I say that straight up with love. I say that with love, but black people have to be on our road to self-determination and rebuilding the past. It's shaping our present and stepping into our future. That's been shattered in the transatlantic slave trade. And that's what black people have been doing, trying to do is rebuild, put those shards back together. I'm sure you can understand that if you went through the same thing. And that's what I'm saying to all people that are listening to this program now. And I say that as the founder of Lyfeblood.com, that we have to challenge ourselves to be better human beings. That when we see the strife and the conflict amongst us, instead of putting up walls, we can run to each other at least and say, whoa, slow down here. We don't want this to get out of hand. For the betterment of our families, for the betterment of humanity. And this is not to sound cheesy or corny in any way, but I'm so tired of walls, man. I've been through walls for 4 years. I see the walls around the world. I see the walls as causing us to fight each other, and I'm tired. Not that the fight is not in me, but that we could choose another path, something different. That we can choose to be better people. All right, that's my piece. I hope that this didn't disturb anybody. I hope that this didn't shock any individuals. But that's what it's about. That's what it's about, being part of Lyfeblood.com. As I've always said, Lyfeblood is not Facebook. We're here to deal with our issues. We're here to deal with uncomfortable topics and talking about them. And we're here to provide solutions and move forward for the betterment of all of us. And if anybody has a problem with what I'm saying, feel free to reach out to me on social media and we could talk about it. All right, guys, I'm out of here. I don't know how long it's been. Wow, it's been a solid hour. I guess that's all I got to say. And I'll see you guys next week with a full show. Peace and love. Let's get through our issues. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.
Check it.
You just listened to GCOM Radio, powered by Lyfeblood.com for the global community.
We worldwide, baby.
See you in the next go round. From right here to your town, we out.